You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me. Welcome, friends, to this very special episode of the Mom Next Door Stories of Faith. I'm your host, Pam Fields, and on the other side of my computer screen is Lynne at her home. Well, actually, her son's home, but she is in New Zealand, and this is really exciting. We have had to do some extra coordination to make this happen, but we're both just really excited to share Lynne's beautiful story with you. It's Tuesday, 5 p.m. here in Tennessee, United States. And Lynne, what time is it where you are?
Oh, thanks, Pam. It's actually 10 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday here. So yeah, we're crossing the borders there, aren't we? So it's really lovely to be able to talk to you. Thanks.
Yep, you have skipped to the next day. So I have my dinner in, and you have probably just had your breakfast.
Yes, yep, exactly.
Very good. Okay, so now to fill everybody in, we met in California. When I entered a meet and greet at the writing conference at Mount Hermon, I heard all these beautiful New Zealand accents, and I was just drawn to your group. It was so awesome that you could come to the States and experience that Christian Writers Conference. I have to ask, did you ever imagine that you would travel to do something like that?
That's such a good question, Pam, because it never even occurred to me that that would be something that I would end up doing. It was such a great opportunity to be able to go with a few friends and have the chance to meet other writers and authors. And I remember the first day we were there, there was only 6 of us together. And I remember the first day we were there, you just came walking up to us, so bright and breezy and friendly. And it was just such a lovely welcome to such an extraordinary adventure. So thank you for that.
Well, had you been writing a long time before you came to this conference, or you just have this one work that we're going to talk about, or is there more?
Yeah. No, it's something that I've always loved doing. So it's always been an interest. I used to tap away at my mother's old manual typewriter and back in the day and pretend that I was writing books, but never actually managed to develop that into any sort of writing style as such. You know, I had office jobs and things like that, and I've always loved journaling, so writing in that aspect and prayer journals, that sort of thing. But as our own family grew and left school, and this just kept bubbling up and bubbling up, thinking I really would like to try that again and see if I can explore that whole writing idea. So about 6 years ago, I just started doing a few writing courses, and it just kept growing and growing. And then alongside a lot of things that were happening in my life at the time, it just sort of developed that this was perhaps something that I could take further.
So tell me about your family. You could go back as far, I don't know if you want to tell me about your family now, and then we hop back to
Yes.
look in the rearview
Okay.
mirror.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. So my husband and I live in New Zealand, as you said. We are living on an orchard, so we've got a lovely rural property there, growing kiwi fruit, and we have 5 adult children, and 3 of those are married. So we have 3 extra partners joined in, which is lovely. We also have 3 grandchildren now, which is an absolute delight. We see them all regularly, which is really special because everybody has all had their turns over the previous years of living overseas in different places. And recently, in the last few years, have just come back to New Zealand and now all living within half an hour of us. So it's really, really lovely.
That is so great.
Yeah.
So everyone is grown up. That is a
Yes.
new stage of life.
Yes.
You know, it seems like as we age, we kind of also start a new thing. And you have started a new thing of writing. And
Yeah.
like you were mentioning, it is reflective of some of the other things that were going on within your story, your personal story. So,
Mm,
we're going to be talking about adoption today.
yes.
And I would just love for you to take me back to the adoption story and your perspective.
I guess really to start that story of my beginnings, I've got to go back to 1965, a time when single mums didn't have a choice of keeping their babies as there was no other support then. So I was born at that time, and she was basically on her own at that point because families at that point, it was difficult for them to support that because they preferred that that was kept secret and they would rather
Mm,
people didn't know. So
mhm,
um, yeah, so that was the case there. And I was with her for, I'm not actually sure how many days, but then I went into foster care and was in foster care for 7 weeks. And then I was adopted at 7 weeks old and went to another family. My life sort of started all over again, new identity, new everything to get used to. All of that attachment and security changes, and yeah, you move
mhm,
on to your next family and
mhm.
go and live your life type of thing.
Did you know growing up? Maybe I'm a little premature to ask this, but did you
Mm.
know growing up that you were adopted?
Apparently, I did know. It's funny. I guess children have their own way of interpreting things.
That's true.
Uh, yeah, I feel like I always wondered. I always had this wondering of, I felt a little bit different. My brother and sister used to reassure me and say, yes, we've always known that we're adopted. But I remember when I was around 9 and a family friend said to me, some offhand remark about, oh, that's happened because you're adopted. And I was quickly flung round to sort of say, oh, how does she know that? Is that what everybody knows, that I'm adopted? And so there was just another awareness there. And so I think it kind of, for me, happened in layers that this awareness kept simmering away really in the background. And I would notice other families, how they would have similarities or mannerisms the same, or, all these little things that a child is trying to piece together in their mind
Mm,
and build security. There were lots of things like that that I just had so much wondering about. And
mm,
it's just always been like an undercurrent there, even though I I personally think that you can be grateful for your life, but you can also carry a grief for something that's gone
mm,
before as well. So
mhm.
it's like a both and situation.
Uh-huh. It's like a
So
patchwork that was being
definitely,
developed, and you maybe didn't even, I don't think about that, because I was raised by my biological parents. So it's something that
yeah.
I haven't had to encounter, and it wouldn't have occurred to me how much like our identity, we recognize that because we are part of our biological family. Were
Yeah.
your siblings biological to your parents?
No, no. So my brother and sister were 10 and 11 years older than me, and they were both adopted too. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so we were all adopted, and I came into a ready-made family. And
Yes.
yeah, so I feel that everybody has their own unique story and pathway through what happens to them in their life. But I feel like that was something that really shaped my life story, and the sort of bewilderment that came with that was something that was, yeah, just sort of always around, not
Hmm.
far away from my thoughts. I
Hmm.
remember as a little child, probably even just preschool, and our family would go to church together, and I would just love that time because it wasn't so much the service of it or the exact way they did it, because it was very conservative, but in that, in the hymns and in the readings, there was something within me that just felt that God was love. And it wasn't necessarily that I was exactly told that, but it was something that I felt was deeply true. And so
Mm,
that became really like an anchor to me and a shelter. And
mm,
so as my own faith grew, that was something that I was always sure of.
mm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you knew that you were recognized by him? It was like a part of
Mm,
a greater family. I think we
mm,
call it a church family, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And I think we can sometimes choose to be separate than our church family or choose to belong. And it's like there
Mm,
was a level of acceptance that you knew that you were known and that they were
yeah.
also family to some extent.
Yeah. And I think somehow because of my insecurity, I might not have always sensed that from the people. And I don't think that's their fault. I
Mm.
think that was
Hmm.
something within me.
Hmm.
Um, that's my wondering about it. But I do think that that sense of belonging and being known by God is just something that always felt like there was something secure in that.
Mm.
There was something rock solid in the fact that he doesn't change. And that,
Mm.
yeah, that brought to me a sense of security that
Mm.
was, I deeply felt that. Yeah, it was something that reassurance that I craved often. Um, I have heard sort of on repeat that sometimes adopted people can feel um, these insecurities and the sense of rejection, things like that, that are just inherently part of how they sort of perceive the world. I think there's a lot to be said for when a baby is separated from their mother, that sense of attachment that has already been
Mhm.
growing is
Mm.
disrupted. And so
Right.
even if it's something that will be a good thing, the thing is that that disruption has happened and that seems to,
Mhm.
leave
Right.
some kind of consequence. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to hit the fast forward button and
Yep.
look to a time when you were a little bit older and how that identity like moved you into adulthood.
Yeah. That's just given me a great memory of listening to my sister talking with my aunties, and she was talking all about, oh, I've just met my birth mother, and explaining how all of that was. And my ears just pricked up. I was 16 probably, and I just thought, is that something that you can do? Can you find out, your heritage in that way? Because of course, in our country, all the adoption files are sealed and locked away, and you can't find any information about your genealogy at all. Between the 50s and the 80s, it was very, very secret, and nobody talked about it, and everything was locked away. You had a new birth certificate, no names mentioned, and that's just how it was. And so, really, like you can imagine how that was at school when you're asked to do, let's all do our family tree. And I'm like,
Uh,
well, um, I can do the family that I'm in, but I don't want to know anything about my natural family. So those sort of times would just push on that bruise of the not knowing.
I imagine that even those questions as a school project feels a little isolating and
Yeah,
really points out the fact that you're different. Your circumstances are different than the other kids in your class.
that's exactly right. And I feel like because it wasn't something that was talked about either, I had this feeling of maybe it's something shameful. And
Mm,
so it was, I think anything that's secret can kind of fall into that feeling even by default. And so
right.
that kind of, yeah, went together with that, which wasn't a great feeling, but always this feeling of wondering was there. And so I talked to my sister about that further later on and how did she do that and how did she find out? And then I talked to my parents, and thankfully they were just so understanding about it because my sister had already done this, so she'd paved the way. And so they were very understanding and said, let's just try contact the person that let us know about you needing to be adopted and see if they have any information. And so back in those days, that was write a letter and make
Uh-huh.
a phone call. It was not
Uh-huh.
any looking anyone up online.
Mm-hmm.
And that just started off a chain of events that thankfully one thing led to another, which was a sort of series of miracles, really. And I was able to eventually meet my birth mother through that. So that was really great. At 17, um, actually, I had left out that um, along with this, I had met and was going out with my husband now. But yeah, and so I had this lovely support of Phil, who was just in the whole story with me and wanting to know any information that we could find out, and just understood the whole belonging aspect of that. And so we both went up together and met her and her husband. And it was just so lovely to be able to see somebody that looked like me. There were similarities.
Uh-huh.
As we talked and sat there in the park, there were certain things we'd do the same, or laugh at something at the same time, or sit in the same way. And it was just very enlightening to all of a sudden have these resemblances to somebody
Mm.
else that I had never had before. And so that was quite a groundbreaking time. Yeah, really, really life-changing to be able to do that.
Did you feel like you had not met a stranger, but a familiar person?
Yes, yeah, it did feel,
Uh-huh.
it's such a strange thing how so many aspects of the adoption story is a both and, because
Yeah.
there is this familiar feeling, and as we're talking away, we're like, yes, I understand, or nodding in agreement. But at the same time, there's this gap of all of these years that you haven't had together. And
Mm.
so you're actually talking to somebody that you don't know at all. So it's
Right.
another example of how it's a both and, because it's like,
Uh-huh.
hmm, this is the first time we've talked, and yet there are these things that are similar. I think they call
Mm.
it genetic mirroring,
Okay.
where it's just so normal to be able to look at your family and you see a part of yourself, whether it's in looks or mannerisms or whichever way. And that was something that I'd never had. And it was, yeah, a really welcome feeling to understand that. Happily, Phil and I were getting married not too long after that. I was married at 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was a really happy stage, because all of the years, that I was growing up, I sort of had this longing that if I was able to be a mum, that I would love to make sure my kids were totally sure of them being loved and accepted and valued. And I
Mm-hmm.
just really wanted that to be a different story going forward. And so, yeah, I sort of threw myself into that really in the following years of loving on our family and
Right.
enjoying our life farming. You have, of course, all the normal challenges and ups and downs, but yeah, that was really our focus. It was almost as if having some difficulties in the past almost became like a driving force going
Mm-hmm.
forward, to say, well, um, let's make this better going forward.
Right.
I feel like, I didn't want being adopted to mean being a victim, but I did
Mm.
want to know that um, there could be adapting after that and making it better going forward. As they grew, my time sort of began to free up a little bit more. And that's when I started wondering, I wonder if this would be a time where I'd be able to think about the paternal side of my
Mm.
family, and if there's any links there that I can explore. And so that gave me some information to at least put names in and start looking on, birth, deaths, and marriages information, or Facebook, online, any sort of way like that that you could just kind of put those search feelers out and see whether I could find him. And one thing led to another. It just seemed to be like speed bumps all the time, trying to get access. But I came across a person with the same name and he had on his profile that his brother was the same name as my birth father. And so I was sort of curious of this. I was like, this could be, potentially my uncle. And as I figured it out, it looked like it definitely was. And he happened to be a vicar. And so Phil and I were like, maybe that's a really good place to start, because if anybody's going to understand a story about somebody wanting to know about their family, a vicar would surely understand. So
So in New Zealand, a vicar would be similar to a pastor or reverend here in the United States.
that's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he was just so warm and welcoming. It was just a delight actually to meet him. We carefully told him our situation and our story, and he was just very open-armed and accepting in such a beautiful way. It was just actually felt like an extension of God's love, actually, to be honest.
Oh.
Just the way that he approached us and talked about it and said, look, I'll just give you my brother's name and you can make contact yourself, because I can see that, the best way forward is for everybody to meet. So we were kind of hoping that he'd be like the middle guy for us, but he was so positive about it that he was just like, here's his number, go ahead. So that gave us that inroad.
So you're holding the phone number and the
Yes,
name.
yes.
And what do you do then? Like, how do you wait? Do you like immediately send out a text? Do you call? What do you do?
Well, I kind of have always had this trouble of being a little bit oversensitive at times. And so I completely went into this, first of all, excitement, second of all, straight into freeze flight.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like I do not know what to do.
Well, you go
So,
back to that acceptance and rejection, and then you
yeah,
go, I have the phone number, but what if I contact him and he doesn't want to talk to me? Or what if there's something tragic waiting on the other side,
yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. And all of those things are very real. Those are real possibilities. So yeah, you do think a million things all at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very, very fortunate that Phil rang him a few hours later and said something along the lines of, I think I might be married to your daughter.
Mhm.
And we arranged to meet a few days later. Um, once
Wow.
again, once again, we parked out on the street next to his house, and I said to Phil, I just don't know if I can move. And then I said, could you just quickly go up to the house and check that everything's fine, and then I'll come. And so he kindly did that, and came back to the car and said, everything's all go, it's great. So that was, you'd think after all of those years of waiting that you'd just bound out of the car. But I was like, oh, what if? I was full of what ifs. But
Right.
I was just so thankful as well, though, for I could really see like answers to prayer the whole way along,
Mm,
because it, the information is just so difficult to get, and there's so much heartbreak around this that
mm,
people can't find this information easily at all. And so many people can't actually get to reunion whatsoever because they can't find a name even. So I was really thankful to be able to do that. The thing to remember with this sort of situation with reunion is that you don't have any guarantees of what is going to happen and what
mhm,
the reaction will be like. But there is something in the knowing, and
mm,
knowing who a person is, or having
mhm,
that, even if it's a meeting, there's just something in knowing that. Even now, it's like, it's not that we have to be in each other's pockets, but there's something about that knowing that's so special.
Did you walk away from that first meeting with even just more of a peace to know, okay,
Yes,
now there's no mystery?
yes, definitely. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I felt like I was walking on air a little bit actually as we left
Hmm.
because there were just so many answers to, you know, really a lifetime of questions up until that point.
Hmm.
And yeah, being able to have um, names and areas people had come from and uh, just another branch of a family tree that is just, I don't know, it just felt healthy.
Mm.
I felt like I was a birth notice that was 50 years too late coming out.
How far did you live from your biological dad?
So we were 3 hours drive. So it wasn't as if we
Okay.
could just, yeah, pop
Well,
around and see each other all the time.
right. And you probably didn't think, have I been passing my brother and sister in the grocery store? Maybe our children went to school together or something
Yeah.
like that because there was far enough distance that it wouldn't have been likely for you to have run into them.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And it's funny you should say that because I often used to think in the years previous, you'd see a man around that age and think, oh, I wonder if that might be my father, or I wonder if
Mm,
that person might be related. It's just a feeling of that
mm,
not knowing. And I remember
yeah.
after meeting him, my husband and I walked into a restaurant not long after, and I just had this realization drop into my heart that actually I didn't look around the room and think, I wonder if any of these people are related to me. I wonder if
Mm,
that's my birth father over there, because now I knew. And so it
wow.
was this very settling feeling, which was, yeah, so helpful.
Wow. Yeah, I could
Mm.
imagine it ended the curiosity, the
Yes,
knowing, so
yeah,
important.
definitely, definitely. And that's what I kind of felt too. If I had that sort of wondering that over time, I didn't want to assume that if I did get to meet my brother and sister, um, I didn't want them to feel like I'd waited too long or um, had uh, agreed with my birth father to keep myself a secret. It just became like I started to feel more and more false because I wasn't being authentic in who I am.
Mm,
And as my faith had been growing over the years as well, I really held on to verses over the years that would really just give me that solid feeling that grew. Um, like um, times when I would need to know that God was there to be my refuge, I would think the eternal God is our refuge and underneath of the everlasting arms. And that's the sort of thing that grew in me over the years to help give me courage to finally do something about it myself. Because I felt as if being a secret just wasn't going to be a good idea going forward. But at the same time, I had no idea how to go about it without just arriving on their doorstep and saying, Hi, I'm your sister, which felt really
yeah,
disrespectful. So,
right.
so I kind of came to a place where I needed to almost lay that down for a while
Mm,
because, hope deferred is something that's an uncomfortable thing. I mean, that can be something that makes you sick, right?
right.
So it's something that I couldn't always be feeling. And I had to make intentional thoughts to enjoy my present life and be present
Mm,
in the moment with my own family. And
mm,
so this was something that wasn't like a on top of my list all the time because I wanted my husband and
mm,
family to be on the top of my list. And
mhm.
so it would
Just
just keep coming
lingering.
back and forward.
Yeah.
Yes, back
Hmm.
and forward, perhaps now. Um, and so one day, my son, who was about to have their first baby, said to me, How's that all going, Mum, with um, all of that reunion? And is it kind of working out? And I said, Well, to be honest, it's been really great to find out, but the fact that um, I'm still sort of partly a secret to his family isn't sitting well. So I'm just going to have to let that be laid down for a while. And I
Mm.
said to him, it might have to be the case that our family tree just starts with me because it's just too difficult to figure out how to do it. And I
Mm.
know there's probably a lot of people that might listen to this and just think, why don't you just turn up on their doorstep and say it? But for me, I think that because there's been this undercurrent of, show respect and don't make waves and have harmony, all of that sort of thing. It was just a step too far to just show up unannounced. But I did think about this beautiful uncle that I'd met, and he'd been so accepting and loving that I thought, you know, I just feel like actually that thought just landed in my heart one day. Why not just see whether you could catch up with him again? And over a series of events that happened through that, there was some ups and downs that happened. I actually missed his death notice and didn't hear about it because I wasn't part of the family. But when that happened, I was really heartbroken because I had felt this connection, having known that he was such a kind person to me. When he met us, he had suggested, do you know, it would be nice to come down and I'll see my friends that live not far from you and we could come and meet the family and that'll be really lovely. But before any of that could happen, he passed, unfortunately. But I remembered him talking about these dear friends that just lived down the road. And so I thought, I might not be able to turn up on my brother and sister's doorstep and say hi, but I could probably go and ask these friends, um, is it possible to just hear a little bit more about his life and have a sense of connection through their memories of him? And that was just such a wonderful thing to do because this couple that were his friends, they were just so open-armed about it as well, just like he had been. And when they heard my story, they were like, oh my goodness, well, we're going to his memorial soon, and it's only natural that you would want to be part of that. Would you want to come as our guest to his memorial
Mm.
service? And I was
Mm.
just so shocked because I was like, wow, firstly, that they would ask such a welcoming gesture. And secondly, that um, how in the world would I do that and how would that look? But one thing led to another, and there was a lot of prayer and patient friends that were like, yes, do it. And so that's exactly what we did do. A few months later, we went up and I told my birth father, look, I'm not coming to make any waves. We're just going to come to pay our respects. And we just need to have this connection with this part of my family story. And so we did that and we arrived. Everybody was gathering around. It was a beautiful occasion, beautiful, respectful, um, lovely service. And I saw this woman standing outside the church on the phone. And I was like, quickly turned around to my husband and said, oh, I think that's my sister. Just like this
Yeah.
recognition.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And sure enough, I went not knowing what to do because I had already decided, I'm just going to be here as a guest to these other friends.
Kind of quietly walk in, maybe sit in the
Yes,
back, quietly walk
exactly.
out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. And I just thought, well, at least I've done that. But I was sitting in the back and then I had a tap on my shoulder from behind me. And I was like, oh my goodness, is this the part where I'm going to get asked to leave? But it was my sister. And she said, hello, are you Lynn? I think I'm your sister. And just gave me this huge hug. And it was just the most beautiful healing moment that was just like surreal. I am just so thankful to the Lord for it because you really couldn't have hoped for someone to be more accepting. She'd only just found out a few minutes before that arrived.
Oh,
that
oh, a
that I
few
could be there.
minutes.
So she didn't have time to process. You know, I do need to say, for birth parents, it's really difficult to, in some situations, to figure out what to do with this person that's arrived back into their life. So
Right.
I don't hold a grudge against any of that, but I acknowledge that it's difficult. But to have this wonderful reaction was just absolutely beautiful. And so from that time on, we were able to rebuild a connection. And my birth father rang a week later saying, "Look, I've had this all wrong. The family all want to meet you. When can you come up?" So that was an absolute turnaround. And it was just, I nearly fell off my chair. It was just so good.
So your family just exploded. You have now a sister,
Yeah,
you have a brother, a
yeah,
biological father, and really he gained a lot too because now he has
yeah,
grandchildren and
yeah.
all the things.
That's right. So it was actually just a really lovely healing time. And I found out a surprise sister was there as well, that because of the times that the 60s was, uh, he had also had another baby adopted out, and she had already met him years previous. And so she was there as well and said it was just such wonderful news and was just so beautiful and accepting as well. So sadly, I missed out on meeting one of my brothers because he had already passed. So that was sad to find out. But I was able to meet my other brother, and it was just really great. Met an auntie, a cousin, and even though that journey took several years, it
Mhm.
was really worth it in that moment to just make all those
Mhm.
connections. And now
Mhm.
the sisters and I particularly keep in contact regularly, which is very special. I don't take it lightly.
So the sisters, you were raised in three separate homes then.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Yet
So,
now you have like the sister bond that you
yeah,
never had expected.
that's right. Yeah. So it has actually been a delight to be able to reconnect and have that special relationship with them and make up for lost time, which is really,
Oh.
really special.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times I think I talk to mamas who have adopted children.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I don't know that I've talked to anyone who has given up a child for adoption. Maybe at some point
Mhm.
I'll chat with someone who's done that. I
Yeah.
think you may be the only person from your perspective that I've had an
Ah,
opportunity to chat with. I'd
oh,
have to think back and go look at names in all the past episodes. Maybe my memory just isn't serving very well. There's so many emotions involved, and wow, like from every direction. Is that what prompted you to write a book? What was your book about?
yeah. Good question. After meeting my sisters and being able to sort of go full circle like that, um, we were actually able to have a story printed about our reunion, which was a special celebration in itself. But after that story was printed in the newspaper, I started to hear about so many other people that have either not been able to find links to their heritage, or that their parents had passed and they'd never been able to find anyone, and now they're
Mm.
trying to find it with DNA. There's just
Mm.
story after story from each side of the angle that has heartache attached to it.
Yeah.
And more and more, I just kept getting this wondering about maybe if I share my story, it could be a drop in the ocean to help bring a little bit more understanding, a little bit more perspective to something that isn't really talked about a lot. And, I feel there are thousands of people that are in similar situations potentially,
Hmm.
but, um, possibly having the same wonderings. So I
Mm.
really wanted to start getting my words out. And as I did that, I kind of would um, find mentors to help me do that.
Mm.
And it was really on my heart these people that are still feeling the loss of all of that, the
Mm.
loss of their right back at the beginning of their life, or the loss of having to give up a baby, or even for
Mm.
adoptive parents to be able to
Mm.
understand that this potentially could be how their adopted child might be feeling, just
Mm.
to bring some awareness to a
Right.
subject that's so been so secretive in so many
Mm.
areas. And
Mhm.
there were many, many times that I would be walking around a bookshop looking for a book that would just speak to how I was feeling. And so, in my heart of hearts, I just sort of started praying and hoping that maybe I could try and write a book that's something that I had been looking for. And so, it's my prayer that this will be something that will bring some love and light and hope, some validation, just another side of the story that will, yeah, hopefully bring some kind of help to people.
I think what you have done in writing it down has probably helped you to heal and to put all those
Mm.
pieces together. I've heard about a book that's called The Power of Writing It Down, I think is what it's called.
Ah, right.
And just in the fact, like as we go through that process of writing
Mm.
things down, it allows us to slow in our mind to really process those pieces to
Yeah.
come to a better understanding. And I think that there's so many things God can teach us when we do slow down and take some time
Mm,
to absorb our story. And
yeah.
really it's about how he draws us to himself and how
Mm,
we understand more about how he's created us and where we fit in his story, right? Okay, so you're going to need to tell me the title of the book. And for those who want to go find it at a bookstore, I'm going to be putting the link in the show notes. So it's just a click away.
thank you. The name of the book is Road to Belonging, and
Mm,
you'll be able to find that at all the usual booksellers. I know they're going to be putting a link to Amazon and all the usual places. So for people in New Zealand, they'll be able to go directly to my publisher, which is a faith-based publisher, Torn Curtain Publishing, and they could get it there. But internationally, all the usual places will have it.
ooh, I don't even know how that works. So I'm going to put the Amazon link for my affiliate link for Amazon,
Yes.
which is
Yep.
probably just for US. But if you're listening in New Zealand, then you have other routes. And if you're having
Yes.
trouble finding it for any reason, I want you guys to connect with Lynne directly. Why don't you tell me any place we can find you, what name we look for, and the spelling even?
Sure, sure. So I'm on Facebook, Lynne Leppard, author. That's LYNNELEPPARD. And I'm also happy if you want to email, that is leppardlynn@gmail.com.
Okay. As we close out today, if you could just pray for those who are involved in adoption in any way, shape, or form.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to chat with Pam this morning. I pray for any dear listeners that may feel some connection to what we've talked about. Adoptees, mums, birth parents, adoptive parents, or friends and families, that they would sense your love for them and find their own way through their journeys. I pray for hearts to be towards you, just as your heart is towards us. And Lord, I pray for healing and comfort, for validation and understanding, and a kinder way going forward for all the subjects that we've talked about today. And Lord, I pray that your love and light would be felt and sensed through this conversation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here with us today. Lynne, I can't remember. Are you on the Tending Fields Mamas Facebook group?
Yes, yes, I
You
am.
are. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we may be on opposite time zone schedules, but that would be a great meeting place as well. So, ladies,
Yes.
if you want to chat over there, you'll find us
Yep.
both. We'd love to
Yeah.
have you there.
Thanks, Pam.
All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories.
Whatever is true.